Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kausachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishno Vande Jagadgurum Shri Krishno Vande Jagadgurum Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Atha Pratamodhyayaha. Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Pranams from Dr. R.J. Kalpana. Welcome to the study of the Bhagavad Gita. Let us begin by considering the first word of the first shloka of the first chapter. The word is Dharma. If we understand the meaning of Dharma, the secrets of the Gita will be revealed to us. If we do not understand Dharma, then these remain just mere words that we read and listen. In order to understand Dharma, I will tell you 4 stories. Each story presents a conundrum and a solution. Now the question we must ask ourselves is, the decision taken by the protagonist adhering to the principles of Dharma. The first story is set in ancient times where there still lived sages who had the ashrams on the outskirts of villages. This particular sage was known for his truthfulness. He would utter not a word of untruth. One morning he was plucking flowers in his garden when he saw in the distance a man run into the far end of his ashram and hide behind some bushes. He saw another man in pursuit who searched in vain. The sage continued plucking the flowers when the searcher approached him and asked him if he saw someone run this way. The sage nodded. The searcher once again asked him if he knew which way he went. The sage pointed towards the bushes that hid the gentleman. The searcher pounced upon him and robbed him of his wealth. The question we must ask ourselves is, what the sage did, was it Dharma? The second story is set in fairly modern times where lived 3 married sons and their parents. The eldest lived far away due to his job. The youngest had a small job that barely furnished the needs of him and his small family. The second son was reasonably well off, and so it fell upon him to take care of his parents, which he did with due diligence. The eldest son would visit on occasion and send money on occasion for his parents' upkeep. The youngest son would visit on occasion and do what he could to keep his parents comfortable. And thus time passed, and there came a time when the parents passed away. The only property worth inheriting was the gold chain of the mother. The eldest son refused the gold chain, stating that he had no necessity to own gold and he could afford to buy his own. The second son claimed the gold chain as payment for services rendered to his parents. The third son asked for the gold chain because he was poor and he had a daughter who had to be married. The warring sons came to a compromise. The second son said, "I will give the gold chain as a gift when your daughter gets married. Until then, I will hold on to this gold chain." Now the question we must ask ourselves is, was the decision of the second son Dharma? The third story is set in ancient times where there still remained the tradition of gurukuls in the brahmacharya tradition, and people sent their children to the guru to be educated and made fit for society. In one such gurukul, 2 students neared graduation time, and so the guru called them both and addressed them, saying that they have learned all that had to be taught, and the time has come for them to leave the gurukul. But before they do so, they must first go to the village on the other side of the river and buy provisions for the gurukul. The students agreed happily and woke up bright and early the next morning to set off to the village. The boatman was awaiting them by the river bank, and they crossed the river and bought fresh farm produce from the village market and returned back to the river bank. But the boatman was ferrying other passengers, and so he was on the other side of the river. The students waited patiently. In the meanwhile, the sun rose gently, and the village women came chattering and laughing to the river bank to do their chores, wash their clothes, wash their vessels, wash their children, and have their own baths. The students discreetly turned away and gazed into the distance, when suddenly they heard screams. They turned and saw one woman had slipped from the river bank and had fallen into the river. She didn't know how to swim, for she was desperately crying for help, and so were the other women watching helplessly, unable to help. The children were sent to the village to fetch the men. One student made a move forward, while the other held him back. "Stop! What are you doing? You cannot touch that woman. Have you forgotten the rules of brahmacharya ashrama?" The other student said, "But I know how to swim. She will drown if I do not rescue her." "The village men will come for that," said the other student, grimly holding on to his arm. "But it might be too late," said the student, and he dived into the river and rescued the woman, who was soon surrounded by the village women, wrapping clothes around her and patting her dry. The boatman arrived then, and the students made their way back to the gurukul, one silent, the other angry. The guru took one look at their faces and asked them what troubled them. One student remained silent with downcast eyes, and the other recounted hotly the events that took place. The guru patiently heard the story and studied the silent student. He asked gently, "Why?" And the student said simply, "I know how to swim." The guru smiled and said, "You have learnt everything that I have had to teach you, and so you are now free to leave my gurukul and make your way in this world. I am confident you will lead an exemplary life." He turned to the angry and now surprised student and said, "Forgive me, child. I must have been remiss in my teachings. If you would but give me one more chance, I invite you to continue your stay in my Gurukul, and I will try my best for you." Now the question we must ask ourselves is, was the Guru's decision Dharma? The last story is set in modern times, and 3 rapists were brought before the judge for a ruling. One of the rapists was under 18 years of age, and the judge sent him to a juvenile detention center. For the law states that under 18 years of age, those accused of crime will not be tried as an adult but as a juvenile. Therefore, he was sent to a detention center for 2 years and was taught social and vocational skills for consequent rehabilitation in society. Now the question we must ask ourselves is, was the decision taken by the judge Dharma? These stories must be deeply reflected upon and deliberated. I pray your reflections will give you greater clarity on the role and meaning of Dharma in your life. Hold on to your answers, and perhaps by the end of the study of the Bhagavad Gita, the meaning of Dharma will become clearer. Do not hesitate to hold an opinion. For a 5-year-old child, the sun is an image in a picture book. For the 15-year-old, the sun is a star in the Milky Way. For the 25-year-old, the sun is solar eclipse, solar flare, solar energy. As we grow and understand, our consciousness expands and allows us to contemplate a 360-degree view of a subject. Before we end this session, I will leave you with a clue. There are 3 types of Dharma: Swadharma, Varnashrama Dharma, and Sanatana Dharma. Swadharma means our individual Dharma. Varnashrama Dharma is a combination of our spiritual, political, economic position in society and our journey in achieving individual perfection. And Sanatana Dharma means the eternal Dharma. If ever there is a conflict between these categories, what must prevail and what will prevail is Sanatana Dharma, the eternal Dharma, that which remains ever unchanging, ever imperishable, that immutable, eternal principle, Dharma. Om Yogesham Satchidanandam Vasudevam Vrajapriyam Dharma Samstapakam Veeram Krishno Vande Jagat Gurum Shri Krishno Vande Jagat Gurum. Om Shri Krishnarpanamastu.